measure that success ultimately? And lastly, how do you market an app through different phases of it? I think a lot of us tend to look at marketing an app once it's released, but how does that plan change from ideation to release to a year after it's released, for example? And I'd love to start this one off with Ali. Yes?
All of them or just one question?
So basically,
let's go one by one.
Here's the other thing also. I feel like tonight is an informal panel, and these guys have a lot of information that I've seen them at different talks. And the first time I saw Ali talk, I thought, I've got to get him at our meetup because he's got great information. I thought that about everyone at different times that's up here. So I'll start with the first question is, how can an app company use social media to acquire the right users?
So the biggest question would be, do we, as app developers or small teams, do we know where the right users are? Because all of these social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like Snapchat, the user base there is kind of like different. I'll give you one example. If you're working on an app for, let's say, single moms who are into fashion, which channels do you guys think we should go to?
Pinterest.
Exactly. If you're working on an app which is like B2B, it's going to help the sales manager at Dell close more deals, which channel? LinkedIn, right? So it depends. To find the right user, it depends on who your target audience is and if you can do the homework to actually find them. And couple of tips that I would give. One is look at your competitors. Look at your competitors, their blogs, their social media channels, their LinkedIn company pages, and see where they have not just more fans, but also more engagement. So where are they getting more comments? So that's where your target audience potentially is. Second is, who has heard of Quora? So Quora is like a Q&A community. A lot of people go there to ask questions, and there are a lot of like gaming questions and sections. So you can go through that and actually just kind of like go through the question and then try to engage or try to guess where those users are coming from. So those two.
Okay, excellent. I'd love to have you tackle another one that is with me is whenever I'm spending my time on social media, I don't know what to post aside from, hey, download my app. So how do I create a compelling story that is not going to turn off everyone that I'm trying to advertise to?
So how many people try to post download my app and nobody actually did that? Like a lot of us, right? Why? Because when we post that link, when we ask people to download our app, they don't know who we are. And I want to give like a quick example. If we go to Facebook today and if we see an ad for Starbucks, we'll click on that ad and go probably buy that coffee. If we see another ad from Ali's coffee shop, it may be a better coffee, we may get a better deal, but we'll never click on that, right? Because we don't trust that brand. We don't have connection or engagement or emotional connection with Ali's coffee shop. So to answer your question, to build that emotional connection, you want to share your why. If you're working on an app, why are you working on that app? Are you scratching your own itch? Or were you working at a corporate and let's say you found a problem and no one has fixed that problem in 10 years? Then you want to talk about that. Because if I tell you I created an app and it helped solve X, Y, Z, that's one sort of story. But if I say I created an app because I was in school and I noticed this problem with other students like myself, and that's the reason I'm creating that app, the second story is going to resonate with you guys more. You will remember that story more. So to post, share your why, be humanized, which means talk about not just your logos, the screenshot, but your team. Talk about your milestone. Actually, the more human images you can use, the better. And actually, when we are developing the apps, there are always like milestones when we hire new people. When we go to events like this, and it's not necessarily people who are going to download our app, but it's networking events. It's people we build connection with. If I need a UX designer, Amir may know someone who designs UX. So we build that connection here. So the connections you build offline, bring them online. And then 20% of the time, talk about downloading my app. And 80% of the time, your story, your milestone, your team, actually the industry that you're in, talk about the latest news in that industry.
Great. Yeah, and I'd love to jump to Amir because I know that you're very active on Twitter, and I've noticed that you're also very transparent about what you're working on, your process. You tell all of your analytics that you have. Is there some sort of filter you pass that information through before you decide what you're going to post?
So basically I have two personas on Twitter. I have my main Twitter account, which I share stories, my personal stories about what I'm working on, the sales data, and anything else. And from that, I'm very candid. So there's rarely any personal filters that I put anything through. And then my other persona is the actual video game itself, the darkroom handle. And then I agree with what Ali said. I do say, hey, download the game, or no new updates are coming out. But generally, I try to tweet about things that people who have played a darkroom would be interested in, right? So, oh, you might want to try this other game, or this person that I follow, this editor, Leigh Alexander. I usually retweet all her stuff because I want to try to build a relationship with her, but also bring her audience and my audience together. So from that persona, I think about people who have played or beaten a darkroom. What kind of information would they want? And then again, like 10 to 20% of the time, talk about my own stuff. So I generally keep that separate. And if there's a situation where it's like, oh, there's something that ADR tweeted, I will retweet it from my personal account. Or if there's something candid that I want to share that's specifically about game development, or revenue numbers or transparency, I'll tweet it as myself and then retweet it as the game account. So I keep that clear separation, but with regards to social media, I have developer relations with my main account and gamer relations with my game account. And the other important thing is that I use the game account to build relationships with editors. So I'll follow Kotaku and retweet about them, or Touch Arcade, or a reviewer that I like to follow, or a small-time person that's got a Patreon that talks about games. And those kind of small connections can potentially become larger later.
And that's something else that I'm interested in. Another thing that a lot of people do is retweet for the purpose of growing your own business. I don't see how that works.
Yeah, the premise is, so the retweet plus comment, I think, is really helpful. So instead of just retweeting something that someone wrote, I would actually read the article and say, okay, this would be an interesting blurb that I potentially would want to share, that would be specific to my audience, and I would tweet with that quoted blurb in there. And that kind of interaction, it does help. It does help. And then, if anything, if not retweeting, just mention that other person, saying, hey, I really liked your article, and just build a conversation, because you're not using it potentially to reach an audience, you're just trying to build some rapport with that person. And again, I'm going back to Leigh Alexander, but my first interaction with her was day one, whatever day one was, and then it was 167 days later that she actually posted an interview for me. So I was building that relationship for that period of time before I was able to email her and say, hey, can you do an interview with me? So you could also use it from that perspective as opposed to just retweeting to an audience.
Okay, great.
So a retweet is like, oh, ADR retweeted me. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about the audience getting that information. It's about, oh, I keep seeing this game, retweet my stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that fills out that 80% of not talking about yourself sometimes when you're retweeting content. And Marcus, I don't know if you have, with the paid user acquisition, if you have experience with that in social media, if you could share some tactics that maybe Game Circus is using.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, just to back up a little bit, so there are certainly different avenues that you can use with social, right? I mean, there's Twitter ads, there are Facebook ads, which I would consider in the paid group. Now, for each of you that I would assume are strapped on a budget trying to do, please download my game for free, ideally, or getting as close to like an organic user as you can. If you're posting, public status or things of that nature, I mean, that's a bit of a different avenue as well. These three gentlemen were kind of explaining to me prior to the meeting that they boost their Facebook posts, for example, to get more visibility. Now, I guess looking at those two spheres, like, yes, again, I focus primarily on like social media and paid media. So I'm running Facebook ads, I'm running Instagram ads, things like that. Moving into, I guess, more of kind of the indie mindset, and speaking anecdotally from the developers that I worked with, so I moved down here from Minnesota. I was working for a gaming company up there. To mirror what's being said around me, a lot of it is the story that all of you and your journey to get to where you are that I think empowers a lot of the indie communities. So, I mean, you read about, the success stories, and it's, we started in this like dingy room, and now we've worked ourselves up to XYZ. The transparency there, I think, is very powerful. Now, in terms of how you can generate things from, I think, connecting those two to also a developer standpoint, each of these platforms is tremendously powerful, and it's, again, in my perspective, how you put your users that you have to work for you on these platforms. So, yes, you going out and posting, please download my game, has a certain effect, can have some power, but if the users that you acquire through these channels or have in your games will post on your behalf, I mean, whether through integration of Facebook, if there is an aspect of your app or your game that somebody wants to share, that is, enticed to share, without you having to prompt them to do so, there's a lot of power in that. So that's certainly an avenue that I would explore. It's an avenue that, Game Circus is also working on as well. But I'm going to leave the paid part, I guess, for for a little bit later. But that's kind of my take on the two, I guess, differences in any of these social media platforms.
Okay, and Justin, I know you don't use your social media as much for advertising, but I do know that you have over 2,000 followers. What would you say has been the thing that's helped most in acquiring the right kind of followers who will be interested once you have a product to share with them?
Right. I think to acquire the right kind of followers and that kind of thing, you have to decide what your purpose is with social media. Is it, I mean, if you want to say, hey, download my app, here it is, or if hey, check out my app. If you want, like for example, I make kids apps. So do I want? I think it's important, like he was talking about, to develop a persona focused, like who are your followers? I mean, do I want to focus towards teachers? Do I want to focus towards moms? Do I want to focus towards educational technology reviewers, blog reviewers, and that kind of stuff? So that when I post that, here's my new app, maybe I'm trying to get bloggers to do a review about my app, or maybe I'm just trying to say, hey moms, download this. And because so when you start retweeting stuff, I mean, what are you retweeting? Am I retweeting here's cool teacher activities, or am I talking about here's new developments in educational technology, or am I talking about here's cool recipes, or or parenting skills, and that will develop a specific crowd of users that once you have that, and it gives you something like you're not, and I don't necessarily practice what I preach. I'm kind of all over the place. I'll be retweeting some of this, I'll be posting some of that, but I think it's a wise skill to try and focus yourself, and if need be, create multiple personas. If you want to have a persona that talks to the developer community and the Dallas startup community, or if you want to have the community or the ed tech community and that kind of thing, and if need be, develop multiple accounts, but with your account trying to focus, find your niche of followers.
Great. Well, before we move on to the next topic, I do want to swing back to you one last time, Ali. One plug I'll have for Ali. He has a meetup group that's called Startup Marketing Hacks that you can find on Meetup. It's a meetup that meets at Node that I've been to several times, and you'll learn a lot more in that 2 hours than you will in this quick question. But I guess to put it into a bite-sized morsel, what can an app developer, and I know I'm generalizing app developer too, what are the most important things we can start doing tomorrow for our app or for our company that's going to be more advantageous to our business?
Great question. So when we use social media, it actually works in 3 steps. In step 1, we build our social audience, which means we gather followers on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And in step 2, we take them to our app store or our landing page or our website. And then that's step number 2. In step number 3, we ask them to download. Those 3 steps is a lot of work and a lot of time. Imagine if you met someone here today and you only talked to him once, you're probably not going to remember his or her name next month. It's probably going to take you 3 or 4 meetings before you remember someone's name, before you get their attention. It's 10 times harder to do that online. It is extremely important to be on social media, but if the most effective thing that you can do is actually, instead of focusing on build your audience, but here's the step-by-step process that I would recommend. How many people have used Google Alerts? So if it's going to take longer for us to build our audience, what's the next best thing? We go to a person who already has our audience, right? So how do you do that? Go to Google Alerts, set up alerts based on your niche. So if you're working on food, set up alerts for food. If you're working on fashion, set up alerts for fashion. Whatever your terms or your niche may be. And then Google is going to send you daily emails based on people who are writing content relevant to your app. Those people are going to be bloggers. Those people are going to be news journalists. Those people are going to be the editors at Launch DFW or Dallas Morning News. And they have readership, right? And then in the next step, look at the author of those articles, add them to the Twitter, and what Amir said, build a relationship with them. So retweet them, engage with them, ask questions, to a point where they remember your name. And then in the last step, when you do release your app, or when you have a story or something that's newsworthy, or someone would like to read about that, like the app launch, reach out to that person. That person is more likely to cover your story than someone who doesn't know you. Does that make sense? So in this example, we went to a person who writes about our topic. How do we know that? We know that because Google Alert sent us those articles that he's or she's writing. And then we pitch that. So it kind of falls into, not into, like by definition, social media. It's more like a PR. But these days, like the lines are kind of like blurring out. Your PR, your social media, your SEO, they're all like combining together. So if you guys were to do something, like one thing tomorrow or tonight, set up Google Alerts and pay attention to people who are talking about your niche.
Awesome. Very cool. Someone write that down so I can...
By the way, if you guys have any, don't wait till the last Q&A. If you have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll be happy to answer those.
Cool. Well, I will now turn it to paid advertising, which is I don't know what the term is, like white whale, something that I don't know much about, but have always wanted to. I think the fear is with paid advertising is that you're going to spend money and you're not going to have a good ROI on that. And that was part of the reason for having Marcus here with us today. He does this for a living. So I would love to turn it over to Marcus. I'll first read some of these questions that are, again, the jumping off point for this topic. When an app is launched, do you have any recommendations for paid user acquisition through paid advertising? In your experience, have you identified the ideal strategy? And lastly, are there any anecdotal examples you can share of paid advertising working? All right, I'll turn it over to Marcus.
Sure. I guess before I begin, does anybody here run paid advertising? I guess another question is, does everybody know what paid advertising is? Okay, so we got some hands. That's good start. So I guess just a bit of a breakdown. So basically, it's digital marketing. So you see ads on Facebook, you see ads in the games you're playing or the apps you're playing. Obviously, some don't have ads. I guess those are classified more as freemium. But so I'm on the side that is buying that inventory in other games, in other apps, and showing videos or creative images for Game Circus's games. Our title's Coindozer. I don't know if you guys have seen it or played it, but you should all download because you're all organic users. In any case, but I guess going through some of the questions that Nick has raised. at launch, and this is a really, really good question, and I think one that, at least in my experience, having spoken to other indie devs, is very scary because it's, generally, again, money out of your own pocket, right? But even before that, you have ideas, people are playing your games. For Game Circus's purpose, we're always soft launching ahead of a worldwide or hard launch. So we have an idea going into it, what the users are going to be worth in terms of monetary value. Even before that, I think if I put myself into, if I was a developer and spending my own money, I think first and foremost, it's really important to define what are your goals for paid advertising. Are you trying to get to number one? Do you have the budget to get to number one? Game Circus certainly does not. But do you just want people to play your game? How do you find those people? Things of this nature. But I guess, again, going back to the launch, through any instrumentation in your app or our apps or games, we again have analytics set up that allows us to determine what these users are worth. So going into a worldwide launch, we know exactly what we need to pay to break even, or confidently break even. Well, this, I think, might be a little bit outside of the scope of the information that some of you are looking for. It's if you have, again, the analytics or the tools in your apps and games to look at what are users worth, that's going to be a huge starting point for any launch. What the second question was?
The second question was, have you identified an ideal strategy?
An ideal strategy. So, I mean, again, it's going to depend on, I guess, how much financial risk you're willing to take. Again, if you're going into that launch with a solid understanding of what are our users worth, then again, I think you're sitting in a pretty good, you're sitting pretty well. If you are willing to take more of a risk to try to get, a top rank or something, I mean, there is going to be some loss with your advertising investment, and certainly through our launches, they are sometimes not break even. We do take a little bit of a hit, but it is calculated. So I think that those are definitely important to consider. How much financial risk can you take? In terms of anecdotally, where paid user acquisition works, as Nick said, this is what I do on a daily basis. We have a team at Game Circus that is buying users every day. Our games have successfully reached top 5 overall games. We'll hit. We always aim to hit the top of the new charts as well. And we, I think, have a pretty successful track record of doing so. But again, a lot of this is reliant on the analytics and tech infrastructure that we have set up to support our group. We don't buy blind, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Did you have a question?
You don't have to disclose it if you can't, but can you tell us which countries you soft launch in, and can you tell us what cost per install or CPI that you usually aim for?
Sure. Well, the initially, and that's a really good question, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So, Game Circus doesn't localize their games, so we're looking for proxies to like Tier 1 English-speaking countries. So, this is kind of going into, I guess, the next part of what I wanted to talk about. But how do you find the right users for your games? Different advertising networks will allow you to target in different ways. Facebook is kind of where I live on a daily basis, and the targeting is extremely granular. If you want a specific DMA with age, any demographic information, you can do so. But I mean, in terms of the CPIs, for new products, if for example we were launching something completely outside of any game we had ever launched, we'd probably open at very small caps, small daily budgets, at I would say call it like $1 CPI or something, just to generate some users to try to figure out what's going on and then shut those off while we evaluate what are these users actually worth. I know that's not a exact answer, but again, the CPIs that we're paying are going to depend on the marketability of our apps, so whether or not we can gain traction at the prices we want to pay. And we don't run active user acquisition or paid user acquisition on some of our titles because we just can't, we will not spend more than the user's worth. Was there another question?
Yeah, and it's question for everybody. So let's say if you have an app, okay, and that's all you have, an app, and let's say $1,000 budget. You don't have a localization, you don't have an explainer video, you don't have advertisement. This is $1,000 budget. How would you spend that $1,000 on?
That's actually a question we were going to ask in the rapid fire. So I think.
Do you want to wait for that?
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that one. That's great.
Yeah, go.
I have a question. So it sounds like for most of you guys, you offer in-app services. So some kind of in-app purchase, or where you're trying to get users in, and once they're there, they're transacting with you. Do you have any experience with where the sale of the app itself, the download, is the primary revenue?
Paid ad?
And so using a paid ad for an app that where you're selling it for upfront financial value, and it's not predicated on activity after purchase.
That would certainly be Amir's.
Wheelhouse.
Yeah, so if you'd like to speak to that.
And I guess with doing education labs.
Right, yeah. I have kind of premium and freemium with a single in-app purchase.
So yeah, all my apps, all my games are paid, no in-app purchases, no ads. So that's kind of like the brand that I built for myself. And user acquisition is difficult. The most successful way I've done user acquisition is actually on Reddit. And it's really interesting. I'll actually go on Reddit and I'll do a search for anyone that's talked about a darkroom. And I don't care who it is. I don't care what subreddit it's on. If I find someone talking about ADR, saying positive things, I will actually give them Reddit Gold. So I will gild their post. And they are ecstatic when you get Reddit Gold out of nowhere. It's like Christmas for them. It's really good. So the question comes like, well, how do you link that to potentially like subsequent sales? Did I just spend $5, to give someone Reddit Gold? I think it's worth it because it makes them happy. No, of course. But the other aspect of it is that I potentially created a diehard fan with that $5 purchase. So it's unorthodox, but that's kind of how I've done some user acquisition. And inside of the games inside of the games, I have interstitials to my other games. So there is, it's kind of a monetization strategy. Is that if they beat a dark room, 100% chance that they'll buy the prequel, and if they beat the prequel, they're probably going to buy my other games. So that's kind of how I've worked that out. And I'm working with other indie game developers to have almost like a cohort. So we basically say, okay, I'll put curated list of games that I recommend, and you do the same in your game. So that's been interesting. I'm still working with that right now, but it's another avenue that I'm looking at with regards to how do you get them to get your second or third or fourth game. But yeah, getting that first hit comes down to being really genuine, getting those diehard fans to recommend games to other people, and then just elbow grease. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and
Facebook ads didn't work for me. Like I tried the Facebook ads.
Oh, you did try them?
Yeah,
Okay.
I tried them. It's just I'm a nobody. It's just really difficult to do that.
Yeah, and I think Justin before has also told me that he's tried Facebook ads and they haven't been very effective. So I would love for you to tackle that. But just in 1 second, I did want to ask Justin, we had talked about recently about ways that you can spend money to help your app get bigger. That's not necessarily advertising. And I wondered if you wanted to share any of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of a vocal opponent of paid advertising myself. And I'd like to hear if Marcus agrees on this. But I think when it comes to indie developers and especially premium developers, I think the only way that paid ads, I mean, I haven't experimented a lot with paid ads because I've listened to others who have, you know, and I've had lots of friends over the years, you know, who have, you know, he said, you know, he's tried Facebook ads and it wasn't worth it, and I've tried it a little bit and seen obvious failure with it, but I think that when it comes to premium or when paid advertising, you have to have this this ratio, this conversion rate of not even downloads to dollars, but you know, basically clicks to dollars. And things like, you know, Clash of Clans or whatever, they can advertise during the Super Bowl because they have this, you know, it costs them this much to get a user or a download, and it costs them, you know, and they make this much per download. So, whereas with a premium user, I mean, it's face value. You get, you know, per user, you get this much money, and your ads, your clicks are just not worth it. What did I say that was, how do I spend?
Well, I was thinking about how you were talking about the value of the conferences. And spending money on that as opposed to...
I do believe that, conferences are of high value. Networking within your niche and your community, and so like in my situation, you know, children's apps developers, you know, I know people in the industry who do blog reviews. At those conferences, I meet Apple reps, the people who are in charge of like who's going to be featured in the kids section of the App Store and stuff like that. So if I'm going to spend $1,000, I'll probably go to a conference and meet some people and you know, talk to an Apple rep and hear what they have to say about what I should be doing. And also, you know, like the head of the conference and the people who are big names in the reviews and those bloggers and that kind of stuff who are also at the conference.
And just to add to that, really quickly, Patreon has been very helpful for me. So there are people on Patreon is basically a place where artists can go in for one artistic thing, whether it's a write-up or a painting or a drawing or whatever. They get you pay them for that as a patron of the artist. So there are editors and reviewers on Patreon. So I've had much more success with connecting with artists that have drawn something, some fan art for a Darkroom, and I say, okay, I'll give you $5 a month per art thing, and then suddenly I'm one of their, you know, I'm one of their highest paying patrons because, you know, I just did that. So so there are a couple of Patreons that I support, and it's not a lot of money, but it gives you that good signal. So that's been another way where I've made someone's day by giving them something that they really weren't expecting, and then creating really strong fans from that.
Cool. Yeah.
One more little thing that I talked about yesterday with you is also valuing your time as money. So if you're spending a lot of time on social media versus paid advertising, I mean, value which one, you know, your time is money. So you know, consider that fact.
Okay, great. And then I want to circle it back to Ali now. Ali, what are we doing wrong? Why are two people saying that the paid ads haven't been working?
So I tell these people all the time, if you have $100 to spend on Facebook ads, the best thing you can do is to actually not spend that money. And here's why. When was the last time we clicked on Facebook and bought something? Who bought like something from Facebook? Anyone? Who downloaded an app? You did?
Well, I didn't download it. It's an ad. I clicked on it and I actually did buy it. They provide gourmet meals and deliver it to your house. And I needed something like that. So that was the first time actually in months, maybe years, that I actually bought something.
Bought something, yes.
You were really hungry at the time.
Yeah. So here's why they face. So this is coming from a guy. Last year, 2015, my company, iSocialU, 80% of our revenue was managing Facebook ads for brands. So this is coming from a guy who does Facebook ads for a living. But here is, when we are building a mobile apps or like a startup, we have limited budget. and most of our focus is on development, the UI, but we're doing everything, the PR, right? Paid ads, the only way to get good ROI from Facebook ads is the 3-step process that I mentioned earlier. And attract right people, build a relationship with them, and then get them to download. And those 3 steps, if I create an ad and say, click and download my app, which step am I working on? Third one, right? So I skipped 1 and 2, and I jumped to number 3. It's never going to work. I should not say never, but your ROI or your click-throughs or your what you're trying to get people to do, it's going to be horrible. That's the biggest reason why Facebook ads do not work. And I tell the point, you want to get to a point where you know, I think Marcus kind of talked about this, where you kind of know your economics or your unit economics. Who knows about unit economics or business economics? Have you guys heard of that term before? So it simply means that, let's say if I have an app on my website, if I drive 100 people on my website, 10 people download my app, 1 person became like paid user. So if I know those numbers, I know my business. If I don't know my business, I do not know my business. So when you get to a point where you know those numbers, that's when you can work with someone, or you can learn like Facebook ads and say, hey, I'm going to spend $1,000 to drive, let's say, XYZ people, because I know out of those XYZ, this is how much percentage is going to download my app. And out of that percentage, this is how much are going to be paid users. Then at that point, it makes sense to do like Facebook paid advertising. Yes?
I've talked about Twitter and Facebook quite a bit, but nobody's mentioned like Google AdWords or Yahoo or anything. Do y'all see value in that for really low cost per click?
Actually, Google AdWords, yes, as far as the value, yes. But you have to ask yourself this question, kind of going back to what we said in the beginning. Where is your target audience? So if I'm building a business or building an app, and the way people find the problem that I'm solving is by searching in Google, then absolutely invest in Google AdWords. Because that's a prime way of, and I have a quick example. Last year, someone reached out to me for social media, and that person was building a business of the HVAC contractors. So in the summer when your AC breaks down, or in the winter when your heat breaks down, you find someone and you get them to come to your house and fix it. So if you think about the way people act in those situations, if my AC breaks down, what's the first thing I'm going to do?
Google search.
Right? So AC fixed guy in Addison. I'm probably not going to go to Facebook and look at that solution. So go back to the drawing board and who is the ideal customer for my app or my business? What's the need they have that kind of drives them to download my app, and what steps they go towards? If I'm building like a fashion app and it's for again going back to that example, it's for teens or in school, they spend a lot of time on Pinterest or a lot of time on Instagram. Then it makes sense to be more active on Instagram or even invest in paid advertising. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all of these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they have their own value. They're different in a way, the way people engage on them, the way people click on ads on them. They all work. It's up to us to kind of use them in a way that makes sense for our business. Yes?
Do you all have any benchmark metrics as far as click-through percentages, what those should be, or any other metrics?
If you search Facebook ads, I think industry standards, you'll get a chart which has some a percentage sort of click-through for restaurant industries or food, but it's not going to be accurate. The reason is because when we create ads, there are hundreds of variables. Am I solving the right problem? Is it a problem that people want to pay for or click for? Am I using the right image in my ad? Am I using the right call to action? So there are hundreds of factors that go into. And actually, one really interesting thing: if I create an ad today and create the similar ad with everything same 2 weeks from now, the numbers of those two ads are going to be different, because there are hundreds of factors that go into it. So the only way to benchmark is actually against yourself. So let's say if you had $100 to invest on, you're not a startup anymore. You know your economics, and you have $100 to invest on Facebook ads. The way I would do is spend $30 first, and kind of look at the numbers and see if it makes sense, and then spend the rest of $70.
Great. And before we move on to the next topic, I did want to ask Marcus one more thing. If we're looking at advertising with something like AdMob, Chartboost, some of these app-to-app marketing things, which solution is going to be the best, or does it depend on the category?
It's certainly going to depend on the category. I mean, it seems like some of you probably have apps where the user needs to pay 99 cents or something. That's going to limit your availability for different ad networks. I mean, some allow you to advertise, some don't. In terms of if you're running a free app, there's, I think, a gentleman over here mentioned, cost per click bidding type, or, CPI. CPI is going to protect you against fraud or overspending. So you know exactly what you're going to get. Again, it's going to depend on the channel you choose. There's always kind of back and forth, whether or not we should incentivize an install, for example. In general, I think that you can certainly bucket the different advertising networks or ad channels. For, I think, the mobile industry at large, social is kind of top right now, but it also comes at higher premiums. Incentivize, you can certainly generate installs. Whether or not the person actually comes back because they're receiving something for the action, I mean, I would say, in general, in my experience, maybe, at worst case scenario, 1 out of 10 turns into a real user. So you may end up spending that money on a quality channel like a Facebook, for example. You mentioned Chartboost. Chartboost is a games-only network, so if you have like a restaurant or food app, that's not going to be applicable. I would say that, in general, because there's going to be, again, developer time as well, you'll have to integrate the different ad SDKs in order to get access to their measurement, because they want to make sure that, they can bill you accordingly, right? I would definitely select more quality channels that allow you to bid probably the lowest possible. If you're just testing the waters, I mean, I guess I disagree a little bit for how one should use their Facebook marketing dollars. If I was doing it myself, I would start with $1 a day using their optimized bidding system that allows you to choose a CPI, back into a CPI. So you may not generate any downloads, but at the end of the month, you're out, $30, and maybe you have a handful of installs, and you know that you're getting them from, in my opinion, a very quality source. You can experiment with granular targeting. Maybe you end up with 10. Maybe your CPI ends up being, 5 cents or something, depending on what geo you're running in or what target. If you do identify, the unicorn for your game for, the right combination of stuff, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit. So I think choosing a platform that, has reputable quality and you can specify prices that make sense to you, I think is going to be key. Again, it's going to be dependent on your preference. So that's my opinion.
Okay, great.
You have a question?
Oh, yes.
My question is for Marcus.
Sure.
Did you, for Facebook specifically, did you guys try doing videos versus images, and was one better than the other conclusively, do you think?
So that's a good question, and again, it depends on what you mean by better than the other. So for us, yes, everybody's talking about video. Everybody's moving toward video. On the advertising side, if I'm generating ad dollars, they pay the most. On the other side of the spectrum, it allows users to kind of take a look at our products and get a sense and feel. Scalability for video on Facebook, I think, is an issue. The quality is certainly there in my experience. There are other more direct response advertising units, like carousel ads, any of the animated images that you see. Again, there is quality there, but the scalability is difficult, at least for our games and our portfolio. Interstitial still kind of reigns supreme for us, but we do a lot of focus testing on those creatives. It was mentioned earlier that there are certainly a lot of different factors that can go into it, and we have a dedicated team to kind of do those different creative tests. If I would say that in general, if you're running video versus other traditional ad types, if you have the bandwidth to experiment with both, I would do so. video certainly offers, for the users that come in, we see a much higher engagement and much higher monetization. But again, it will be dependent on kind of your product.
A lot of times these apps are invite-based. Do you think that's a good idea to make something invite-based and make it scarce? Or is it just annoying to your actual customers? Because they have to wait too long, they lose interest and might switch to a competitor.
So invite-based, do you mean in terms of like the Candy Crush model, or do you mean just in terms of you can't get access
you
to
can't
the
get
app?
access, you can't download it, but you need it, it's so good because your friends are using it, but you can only get it if someone sends you an invite.
Sure. I think I think it is a very interesting tactic up front, and again, it's going to be highly dependent on whether or not you can generate buzz around your product. I mean, if it is so exclusive, I guess moving outside of this industry, if you look at buying a Tesla at this point, right? Like I would love to own one. I think the wait list is like 3 years at this point or something. So, I mean, everybody has an invite to the party. It's just a matter of whether or not you can afford it, right? But I mean, if you've identified that this is something that you think has a lot of potential, I mean, I wouldn't shy away from it. I mean, any marketing tactics or techniques, in my opinion, even putting your users to work with you, like we see the Candy Crush model talked about all the time. It was genius at the time, and it kind of set the standard. So if you identify something and are willing to experiment with it, I mean, we could be talking about you in 10 years. I mean, I don't know. So I wouldn't shy away from it.
Yeah, it's completely opposite to spreading the word. It's like 360 turn.
Yeah. One thing I would add is it kind of goes back to how big of a problem you're solving. How big is the value to people? If it's another app that does the same thing as 10,000 other apps, then I may not want to give my email and wait. But if it's an app and the value proposition is it's going to help me save 3 hours a day, then I may want to wait for if I'm the guy who's looking for a solution to that. So like Marcus said, you definitely anything with marketing, unless you test it, you don't know if it works for your business or not, because your business, the problem you're solving, your target audience, it's all different. So you don't know until you actually test it and until you have the data. Okay. Yes.
I was going to ask just, I know we're talking about how to market to get users to the app, but what about maintaining loyalty and keeping users using your app? So can you guys speak to any experience on things you've done to kind of keep your users coming back to your app?
They bought my app, I don't care.
Yeah. They already paid the money.
Well, one thing I can speak to with that is I noticed this with an Apple TV app recently, that there's in-game, I guess with games it tends to be a little easier. I think it was Angry Birds Epic, that every time you revisit that app, you get in-game currency. And if you visit the second day, you get more currency than you did on the first day. And by the end of the week, you get like this huge reward, by having them come and use your app over and over again. Another thing I would think you could do, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with marketing, but is you can, with iOS, you can have the local notifications that are set to trigger within maybe 1 week of the last time someone used the app. An app that did that great for me was Duolingo. Duolingo would send these notifications with the little owl looking sad, like, oh, you haven't played in a week. And it's like, I really need to go back and learn Spanish. But yeah, did anyone else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, there was an app we built and there wasn't much engagement in the inside the app. And we had good user acquisition, but our retention was this. So you absolutely want to think about how can you incentivize people, or number one, can they spread the word for you? And do they, can you give them a reason to share your app? Number two, can you make them feel better? So, are there anything, hey, come back and use the app, like this example. Sure. If you haven't used it, then, go back and use it so you can feel better. And number three, are there incentive for them? Do they save money, or do they get any rewards, or something for inviting more people for you? So things like that you can do to increase engagement.
And yeah, I think user retention and everything is important. I think Amir is joking because because I think of him, of all people, I think of as someone who gets his users to just love him and
Based on
his
loyalty,
app.
yeah,
He gives them
exactly.
$5, you know. But I mean, using analytics and growth hacking and just trying to tweak things and see how your retention. I mean, the App Store has given us analytics now, or just using Google Analytics to find out what's bringing your customers back. Because the more you can do that, the more you can build a brand. If you release multiple apps, I think that's probably one of my big favorites in marketing that I think is powerful is brand building. And if you have multiple apps that you can cross promote between, that would be. So yeah, the more you can bring them back into your app, the more they'll see your cross promo. Even if they already paid you your $5 and you have no in-app purchase, they'll see your cross promotion and buy your other app for $5, or maybe that's a little high priced, but God forbid we spend $5.
Yeah, and from my retention side, my biggest, because my time is limited and my money is limited, I'm looking for the super fans, right? So those people that reach out to me on Twitter, that post like the end game screen, I immediately follow them and retweet. So it's like, all right, the game just followed me because I posted a screenshot or something. So those are the ones that I try to do my best to keep a really good relationship with. But yeah, for me, because I don't use data, I don't report home for anything. Everything for me is like, I don't know who's using my app, I don't know who's playing it, I don't know who's finishing it, I don't know how far they're getting. But that was a choice I made. But at the end of the day, I know that someone has beaten the app and has reached out to me on Twitter. That's the person I'm going to interact with, and that's one, and I do my best to take care of them. Because they're going to find people that.
Yeah, exactly.
Will,
All right, I think what I'm going to do. Oh, another question. Yeah.
I just got a generic question. Between like ideation, design, coding, production, new user acquisition, retention, how do you split your time for an indie game development?
I don't sleep.
That's a great question. That's the first thing you give up.
Yeah,
Just
don't sleep.
Just those unnecessary things, just cut that out.
Don't
I put my
sleep.
kids up for adoption.
That was a serious question, by the
No,
way.
Right. Yeah.
No,
I think as it pertains to this, I think it would be how much time could potentially be spent on marketing. Because in my experience, 90% of the time I spend is in building the app, and then 10% of the time is, well, the last 10% of building that app takes 90% of the time. So I'm building the app forever. And then for me, I don't put a lot of attention on marketing. I put a lot of attention on ASO, which is one of our next topics. But
Actually, I'll take
Yeah.
some comment. So really, I think it's especially if you're independent freelancers or consultant or game developer, that's the biggest thing that comes up, right? Because we're good at something but not other things, right? But to build a business, to market, we need those other things that we're not good at. So one thing I like to tell people is actually identify what you're good at and then use that and amplify in your marketing. And I'll give you one example. So let's say if I'm a developer and all I know is how to write code, and hopefully I have this device with the camera phone, which is, I think you have mine. What you can do is do the development that you do, that you would do regularly for your app. But every once in a while, let's say, take a picture of your screen, or take let's say if you got a logo design from someone, or you're doing your own design. So the things that you're doing in your real life while building your app, show it to other people. Because in simple language, marketing is nothing more than telling people what you do on a consistent basis. Everybody has a phone. The phone has a camera. It takes only a couple of seconds to take a picture, share on Twitter, share on Instagram. So that's how I would say identify what you're good at, and obviously you might delegate, might get freelancing help for logo design if you're, or UI design. Get those pieces, but the other stuff that you might not be good at PR, you may not be good at marketing or Facebook ads or other pieces, but do what you can with what you have right now. The worst thing you guys can do, or all of us can do, is actually wait until the app is released and then start marketing. Because we didn't give us the time or the energy to build the audience, to build a tribe of people who care about our niche or care about the app we're building. Does that kind of answer your?
I'm a full-time lifecycle customer management.
Okay.
So, I spend, 70 hours a week just on a lifecycle, not related to apps or anything like that. So just retention from prospecting all the way to, reactivating a dead customer is a full-time job. So
yeah.
I was just curious how you guys as developers spend the time, because I'm shocked that you spend 10% on marketing, because you could have the best product ever, and if no one knows about it.
Right. Well, I think a part of that is not knowing, a lot of this is news to me. And it's also the thing that you're hearing, especially from Marcus, is it's not a problem you can just throw money at and it takes care of itself.
And I'm not saying,
there's a steep learning curve with that, whereas I'm really excited about building innovative things.
Sure.
And there's this false kind of thing you say in your mind that is like how I felt about this meetup before everyone showed up, is like, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
A lot of people have this false sense of, I'm creating this app, you're in a vacuum, you've invested your time into it, so then it's become the most important thing to you, and then it sparkles and fades away.
Sure.
I think by not paying attention to these things.
Yes, with your marketing efforts, what's more important, getting them to your website or getting them to the App Store?
So, I guess just to touch on how do I take the time and specialize in what I do well. So for me, my marketing effort my strategy was, someone downloads my app, I want to make them super fans, so they tell other people. So when you beat the game, I have developer commentary where I talk about the making of the game, who I am as a person, who Michael is, all that stuff. And then I say, gift the game to other people. Like, if you liked it that much and you feel like you've underpaid, there's a top right-hand corner, you just hit the share button, and you can gift my game to whoever you want. Right? So it was kind of, I didn't invest so much time on it, but I know that component is working for me without me giving much effort. But you do have to be regular on your marketing. I think that's one mistake that I made when I was building Darkroom, that I started promoting it after it was built. I think I could have done a better job of just regularly showing progress, saying that it's going to come out, it's going to happen. But yeah, just being regular on it, 30 minutes a day, just plan for that. I think that would help. But yeah, getting them to the app page is what I'm looking for.
So to answer your question, so for me, the most important thing for me is actually more than the traffic or the downloads, is actually people giving me emails. Quickly, the way my business is set up at iSocialU, people go to my website, there's always something for free for them to give their email for. Recently, we had a growth hacks to grow your Instagram from 0 to 1,000 fans in 30 days. So very specific. So people would give their emails and look at the couple of videos to learn about the growth hacks. The way my business is, when people give up their emails, so obviously they have the pain of marketing that they either want to learn or solve. On the back end, I have two types of products. Number one is I either work with them and take them as a service client, and they pay me for the service. And number two, I have several paid courses that they could buy if they can't afford paying us. The reason I'm breaking it down for you guys is this is extremely important. This is what I said earlier, knowing your business or your unit economics. What do people do when they go to the website? Or what do you want them to do? In my case, I know when someone gives me their email, they have marketing problem. They want to learn about marketing, because my freebies are set up like that. And once I have their emails, I can close them either on services or on the paid courses. So that's why in your apps, identify it the same thing. Here's the download page of my app. Here's what people will do. Are they going to just click on it and download and pay you money? Or is there a freebie setup? Is there a freemium model setup? Is your app, it's free for 3 months? Are you trying to get them to take that action? So identify that action for your business and then focus on that. Yes?
I'm just curious. You said, focus on what you're really good at, and then, you talked about some things to do
that. Is there a mirror group sitting somewhere else right now, people that could be ghostwriters and very good in digital marketing that are interested, kind of like in this group, you're, say perhaps very good at developing apps. Are there people that have those giftings that would be interested in, say, 1 + 1 is 3, where they're very good at ghostwriting, they're very good at doing digital marketing and content development and marketing automation, and then what they do is they take a whole room of this, and they're able to do that for you, and they're getting a cut of your app download fee. I know there's big agencies that do that, and I know in large corporations they have digital marketing and mobile, and these are different departments, but in this kind of environment, where you have 1 or 2 people developing an app, is there people that specialize and have an equivalent interest on the digital marketing side so that a 1 + 1 is 3?
The simple answer is yes. There are people who are good at digital marketing or Facebook ads or even content development or ghostwriting. But here's, I think it's a classic that I've personally run into those situations too. It's a classic, hey, I'm a developer, should I partner up with a marketing person? Or I'm a marketing person, should I find a technical co-founder, right? There's so many technical co-founder meetups. So here's to build any business or app, personally, in my opinion, there are 3 things that you need. Number 1 is, are you solving the right problem? Number 2 is, are people willing to pay for your solution? And number 3 is, can you find your target audience at scale on, let's say, social media or marketing channel? And if you step back and think about this, any marketing person, if you partner up with them, they're not going to know 1 and 2. If they're good at marketing, they will know 3. So that's the problem that a lot of people, or personally I have run into when I try to do those type of partnerships and things like that. Because the marketing people are going to be really good at creating content, creating Facebook ads or writing copy or all the digital activities. They do not know, in most cases, the answer to the question, am I solving the right problem? Are people willing to pay for this app or this problem that I'm solving? And the only way to kind of find, not the only way, one of the ways to find those 2 answers is by doing customer development interviews if you're following the lean startup.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yes, there are people just like this room. We're app developers, app builders. We need help with marketing. There are people who are really good at marketing. They have some ideas or some technical knowledge in their mind. But if you kind of bring them both together, you want to make sure as a team you understand all those 3 things. Yes?
I totally agree. And I was just listening to some of your commentary. And what got me thinking is that even if you do 1 and 2, the problem is 3 takes a lot of discipline and tenacity.
Yes.
And I can think of other analogies in life where we know how to do it. Hell, I know how to do my taxes, I know how to invest and all that, but am I going to be tenacious and diligent? Because you don't build a brand overnight.
Overnight, absolutely.
Picking a brand takes time and tenacity.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if in that model, you kind of get someone who actually enjoys doing that and is tenacious and disciplined. So I was just curious, and it sounds like there's models, but you need 1 and 2 at bottom line.
Well, I have to say, too, if you look at, and maybe cliche to you guys, but one of the best examples is The Godfather, is Jobs and Wozniak. You had a guy that was really good at marketing, probably, and I have a lot of advanced marketing. He's considered, one of the best, and Woz, who was very technical. So, I mean, and one of the reasons I'm here tonight is I know the marketing side of a lot of things, but I don't know the technical side. So I decided to jump in. I'm like, if I'm going to jump in, I'm going to try to find some freelance or, some hired guns or guys that even maybe want to join in, in a project that I'm doing.
I agree. I think, Wozniak Jobs kind of thing, when you're looking to start something, partnering with co-founders with their specialties is great. When there are a million services out there that will email you as soon as you get on the App Store saying, I'll get you 100,000 downloads. Be careful who you're giving your money to, because I've heard a lot of people telling me how much money they wasted on a lot of different ways trying to get their apps seen, and they don't work. They don't do anything for you.
I just wanted to so. Really quickly, there's like 3 questions. You were talking about like re-engagement. We moved like way past it, but grab me at the end because I have some thoughts on that.
Okay.
You were asking about page, website, something to keep in mind. Any step in your conversion funnel, you're going to have to drop. So if something isn't incredibly necessary, try to cut it out. I mean, the example that he gave, I mean, he's identified that this is where I get my customers. If you're trying to drive them to a download, get them to your page. What you were asking about in terms of people being passionate about marketing, and I think you probably agree with me. There's two sides. You have people on the agency side that are all about to sell, and this is kind of the I'll get you 100,000 downloads. I'm not going to tell you where they're going to come from, but we're going to charge you for it. And this is something I deal with advertisers on that side. Any of the advertising networks we're using, there are user acquisition specialists on their side as well that are trying to get us to increase the amounts that we're paying per user. They're flipping, different levers and dials to get us the users that we want. But ultimately, if you're looking for somebody to partner with, I think you need to find somebody that wants to be on the development side and not the sell side. I think that's going to be very important. Somebody that is invested, that will take the time to understand, your product. I mean, again, I'm an expert in the Coindozer space right now, in kind of the social casino for, where do we find synergies with our products. If I was sitting on the other side of the table, my objective would be, I need to hit my quota. I need to make sure that, this partner maintains a certain spend. I mean, I have friends that work on the other side as well, and that's what they do day in and day out. They're wheeling and dealing. I think for you specifically, finding somebody that wants to work more closely with you, that wants again to be on that development side is going to be very important.
Did you have a question?
Okay, well, so until now, I've kind of thought of marketing as kind of separate from the app development, and you're like saying now we need to merge them as we do the development. So, are there any places where we really need to make sure that we do some kind of I mean, is there a step that's going to mess up as we develop the app if we don't integrate the marketing part? Like to gather information. I think, Marcus, you were talking about something like that. I don't know. I don't really know much about the development part. So, I mean, am I going to regret not having done this marketing
early in the process?
Yeah.
Right.
So absolutely you are. Here's why. Because if we release a product or app today, and we tell people to download, people are not going to download if they're not in our community, if they don't know who we are, if we don't have a relationship with them. To build that relationship, you need to start. And I tell people that day you start writing your first if statement is the day you want to start your marketing. And don't think so. It is a complicated word, and there's a lot of definition, a lot of different ways people do it. But if you really want to simplify, it's about telling more people about what you're working on. If you're good at networking, then go to a lot of networking events and exchange business cards and tell every single person the app that you're working on. If you're good at writing, then write blog articles, write stories. If you're good at taking images or pictures, then create a story or an album of here's the journey of app XYZ, and here's from day 1 to day 99 when I release it, here's the whole story. So the goal is to start sharing your story as early and as soon as possible.
But I'm talking about the technical aspect. I mean, are there things that should be built into an app so that we can get figures and statistics?
I would say,
turn around and tell us something.
I mean, my argument would be definitely. I mean, just in terms of even your own development outside of the marketing. I mean, if you have no idea, let's say that I ask you, where are users dropping off in your app? It's a common question. If you don't have the analytics instrumentation, you can't tell me.
Yeah, how do we know that? I mean, how do we get that?
I think Justin uses, what's the product that you're using that shows how long a user's in there?
Like Flurry?
Flurry Analytics.
Flurry is a popular one.
And Flurry is free.
But what I was talking to him about analytics and user retention, and you're going to want to incorporate that. It's one more thing, so it's an advisable thing. Do some research on analytics and how to do growth hacking and how to do research, use analytics for user retention and that kind of stuff. You could have a whole night just on that. I think.
That's what they're doing once they're there.
Because I think and that's important with any kind of app, but game development especially, because you can see if a user's not getting past a certain level, and just see where in the funnel they're dropping off.
Can I make a comment about that, Nick?
Yes.
In my app, I think Amir mentioned that he has no clue what his customers are doing inside the app. In mine, I can literally tell every single thing they do. And I use that as troubleshooting. If a customer comes to me and says, hey, the app's doing this, I can't do this, well, now I know why. If you don't have that knowledge, you can't solve their problem. But one part that I use, and it's probably the most effective thing I do with marketing my app, and y'all have mentioned it, is when I've got in-app purchases. And when somebody buys, I instantly email them personally. I don't automate it. I get notified they bought, I send them an email and I thank them personally, and I ask for a review. If somebody has spent money on your app and you don't have a way of notifying them that you appreciate it and get them to spread the word, you're missing a big opportunity.
How do you capture their email ID?
Well, for my app, in my circumstance, by law, I must get their email address. So
onboarding process.
when they sign up, I've got their email address. So fortunately, if I see that if they get to a point and they can't, if I see they never get beyond that point, I know they got a problem. I email them and say, hey, it looks like you're having trouble. What can I do to get you rolling? But the thank you for an in-app purchase is huge for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you can do that with a pop-up after an in-app. I mean, most people, you're not going to have their emails, or especially with Apple, you have no way of communicating with your customer.
Right.
But you can pop up a thank you, please leave a review inside your in-app purchase spot.
This one sounds very individualized.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of apps, if you've got social media tie-ins to them, if they happen to purchase and they've logged into your app via Twitter, then you know their Twitter handle, and you can thank them via Twitter. But if you have some way to show gratitude, then that spreads.
By the way, room full of developers, what type of analytics do you guys use besides Flurry Analytics?
I use Google Analytics.
Okay.
I use Fabric.
Fabric?
Which is
so now you have three ones.
Okay, great.
Do you know if that other one, there's another good one.
iTunes Connect Analytics.
Which one?
iTunes Connect.
iTunes
Now you
Connect.
get
iTunes.
That
Yeah.
built in
No,
now.
What is treasure data?
Treasure data, so that's 5.
Well, what I have is I use Google App Engine as my cloud database, and there, just looking at which APIs are being called, and you know how many users are being added, and who added how many contacts, and that gives you way better than any other analysis.
That's good.
Not a question, but going back to the whole marketing thing, I have some resources if people are looking for. One is Linda has a class called Growth Hacking Fundamentals or something. It's really awesome. If anyone's checked it out, and you can sign up for a free account trial for 2 weeks. It's really good. The other thing is there's a book. It's pretty old. It's called Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. And the third one is I suggest Seth Godin. He's like one of the best marketing guys out there. Especially Purple Cow is an awesome book. Especially talking about in this app market with millions of apps, you know, you will identify if a cow is purple. That's his concept.
You have one sitting right next to you.
Right. That's
I
what
know.
And he also has a podcast. It's called Startup School on iTunes. Probably the best podcast for startups and in general.
Yeah, I think a good idea, if we do have more resources later on that we want to share, in the comments of this, we all get notified when comments are made, so that'd be a good place to drop some of those links in case people want to check them out, things like that. Yeah, so I did want to, you know, before we get to the question and answer section, I wanted to cover a couple more of these topics. I definitely want to have that rapid fire question of what you would do with $1,000. But I think I'm going to roll these last two topics into one, which are App Store optimization, which is, I think, is very important. As I've said before, I didn't spend any money on marketing my apps previously, but I was able to generate a lot of downloads through App Store optimization. And I'd love to have Justin speak to that. And second to this topic is now getting featured, either getting featured with Apple or getting featured on blogs or different influencers, things like that. So yeah, is everyone familiar with ASO, or is if ASO is a new concept, raise your hand. Okay, it's super valuable. So Justin, would you like to give a sort of a 10?
Yeah, I think a common thing, mistake that I like to, earlier Nick had said something like, ASO is basically SEO, and I've kind of always tried to fight against that. SEO is a piece of ASO, although, years ago it was the biggest piece that I focused on. I basically made my living on SEO in the App Store. As their search engine gets more and more complicated, more better, and becomes more Google-like, the other pieces of ASO become a lot more important. And in fact, just today I heard a term AMO from Nick, and the way I think ASO is changing it. They're talking AMO. So ASO is App Store optimization. Which they took the term from SEO, search engine optimization, and now it's, I guess, app marketing optimization. And that's using all the pieces that everybody's talking about, from the search engine to the App Store page, to your Facebook page, to the analytics, or whatever you can do to put yourself in front of people. But the key of ASO that I see is, once they find you in this app store that is just a mess of, over 1.5 million other apps, where you open up the app store and you see 10 at a time, and there's 1.5 million out there. If you can be found, through search engine, through marketing, through social media, through direct searches or being featured, once they land on your page, what do you have to sell them? You need to convert that to a download. And that is, in the search results, what you see the icon, the app name, you see like 2 screenshots, and the price even. So on your App Store page, you have the icon, you have the name, you have the, for SEO, you have the keywords, you have the company name, you have the screenshots, you have the description, you have the reviews. That's all part of ASO, and it's all very important. And some pieces are going to be more important, in my opinion, than others. And as the App Store search algorithm changes, certain pieces become more important. Reviews didn't used to be so important, but now I think reviews are becoming part of the search algorithm, as is user retention and things like that. So it's all becoming part of the search engine, which makes SEO that much more complicated and that much harder to do, as well as things like localization and being available in other countries. That's another piece of how to put yourself in front of customers. And then I think another big piece of it is just branding, branding your icons, being a brand that people recognize. If you have multiple apps, which I kind of think is the best way to market is to build quality apps and multiple ones and cross-market between them. I like to use an example of a friend of mine who I want to emulate more. Is someone, when you were asking about the time, how you divide your time, and I agree, you're going to want to do it from day one. You're going to want to, give a fraction of your time to that social media so that when you, the day you release and you post, hey, download my app, you're not just yelling into space, you're yelling to your followers. But my friend, he's been at the educational app game for 6 years since the iPad came out, and he's been making over $500,000 a year with his apps. And he basically puts out one app per year. He spends about 9 months making an app, making a quality educational app, so that it's out just in time for back to school in September. And then he spends those extra 3 months before Christmas just marketing, and the various means of marketing, or talking to people that he meets at conferences or whatever. And then back in January, he starts up his new project for that year, and as long as it's a quality app and he's building a quality brand year after year, he's rich, you know. So yeah, I don't know unless you.
Yeah, I think with ASO, so because we are getting a little tighter on time, I will say if ASO is a new concept, definitely take 20 minutes tomorrow, Google it. There's a wealth of information there. But ultimately, I wouldn't have a career in app development without ASO. And some of the tools I learned from it, for example, it used to be in the App Store. Back in the old day, when I was creating apps all the time, one of the most important things was your app name. And that's the reason you'll find probably over 100 apps called Bible. At one point in time, if it was a direct search result, it would show up if you searched Bible. That doesn't matter as much anymore. And during the heyday, Justin also, his app development company name is A+ Apps and Educational Games.
A+ Kids Apps and Educational Games.
And at that point, whenever somebody would search kids games or educational apps, it was basically the Justin App Store that would show up. So I think being able to exploit these little loopholes as they show up is sort of a key to staying relevant in these new platforms as they come out. So if you're building something for the VR store, the Samsung VR store is totally new. So figure out their search algorithm, and that's my 2 cents on it. So did you want to?
Yeah, I need to learn ESO myself, but here's something I do, and you probably disagree with me on this. So if I have an app in, let's say, fitness, and I want to launch that in the App Store, what I used to do is search fitness and make a note of first like 3 or 4 apps, and then pay attention and make notes of how they use fitness word in their title, in the description, in the tag, and just be mindful of that, because you'll see some patterns there. If people use it as a second word or third word, they rank higher versus lower. So just it's probably not like an ESO tactic by theory, but one of the ways that I try to figure out how other people are doing in the App Store.
Also, I think if this isn't day one of development, and maybe you have an app on the App Store and it's getting 10 downloads a year, you know, and I think the most important thing, the thing you can do to change it on day one, is not social media, is not advertisements, it's ASO. If you go in and fix your App Store page, if you fix your icon, if you fix your name, if you fix your keywords and your screenshots, your sales will go up tomorrow. And that gives you that kickstart you need to proceed with other marketing techniques. If you're getting five downloads a day and you tweak it a little bit and you tweak your ASO, then suddenly you might be getting 10, 20, or whatever downloads a day, depending on how high you raise yourself in those search results and how much you change that conversion from clicks to downloads.
Justin, how do you do that without updating your app?
You have to update your app. Well, a lot of things you have to update your app. Some things, Apple has a page that shows you which ones you do and don't, but your app name, your screenshots, your keywords, your icon, you have to update your app to change those things. Your app description, your what's new, you don't need to update your app. Your company name, you have to go through a whole rigmarole to try and change that.
And that's with iOS.
I'm talking iOS.
Did you want to speak to Android if you knew some different tactics with that?
Yeah, no, I would say that even from the paid advertising side, all of the ASO components are super important as well. I mean, we see noticeable conversions. So I guess taking a step back, Google now has like A/B testing of landing pages, so your product pages, which you can. I mean, we're always testing screenshots, icon. Any incremental increase in your conversion rate is huge when you're doing any sort of like paid. I think the last statistic I heard, just going back to kind of the search results of everything, is that I think 63% of app discovery is through search at this point. I expect that to increase, especially as we get more crowded and everything. So, selection of any of those components, especially the word specifically that you're using. I think that there is a lot of focus, again in my experience, about like, oh, I got to be thinking about like building a brand, and yes, that is important, but first and foremost, I mean, you are building a product, right? So I think that there's a couple different ways to look at it. In terms of the ASO that we look at, and again, as people have mentioned, there are a lot of free resources, and there are a lot of differences between the platforms that I would highly recommend you become acquainted with. As you were saying, there are things that you can do on iOS, there are things that you cannot do, that require different updates and whatnot. But again, I think you mentioned that you were going to compile resources at the end. But
right. And I think with Android, one of the big differences is I can go in and change the title of the app, I can change the description, and those will take 3 hours to propagate into the store. Those changes go out pretty much immediately. The other thing is, the other thing with updating, they don't have keywords for Android. So you have to be very selective in your description with using your keyword stuffing between there and your name. And if they sense that you're saying, kids and children and toddlers, and if you're putting all your keywords there, then they'll frown upon that. But also the way Google search works, and they're basically using Google search within the Android store, is they want you to use your keywords over and over again. That again has a multiplying factor. So if it's a kid's chat app or talking about connecting and messaging, you probably want to say those words in several paragraphs, kind of over and over again. And then, I would love for Amir to speak, but I'm doubling it, so if you could speak to ASO and then transition into talking about featuring. Yeah, great.
So as far as ASO, I completely agree with the keywords. I think it's extremely important. It's something that I didn't care about originally, and I actually had it by accident work out for me. The reason is there's a really good game out there called The Room, and I just happened to be called The Dark Room. So I was getting like number 4 on that list just simply because our titles matched. And then they did The Room 2, so I was like, yes! Right? But then after that, I started looking at ASO, at SEO, searching keywords, whatever. I'm just going to say all 9 letters and just get it over with.
Oh, yeah.
ASOMO. Optimization. So a couple of things that I did was text-based. Great search term for me. VoiceOver is another one, primarily because my game is playable with VoiceOver capabilities, and just not very many games are that way. So I got some really good just downloads, a very, very good signal from those things. And then they do a good job of just showcasing other apps that the same developers made. So when they search for a dark room, the Ensign shows up. When they search for a non-circle, those other 2 games show up. So they do. It's getting better. I've been seeing some things there, but yeah, if you can optimize on that, that's really good. As far as getting featured, it's a whole lot of work. Shameless plug for my book. I have a book out there on LeanPub, leanpub.com/surviving the App Store. It's free. You can download it, and there's a chapter dedicated to how to get featured by Apple, like do's and don'ts. Generally speaking, it's extremely difficult.
What was the title again?
It's leanpub.com/surviving the App Store.
And it's totally free right now?
It's free. If you pay for it, 10% goes to charity.
Okay.
It's a donation slider thing, like
it's a donation
$0
slider.
or $1 million.
Yeah, you'll be helping little kids in the United Kingdom learn how to code if you pay for it. Yes.
I was gonna say, dude, you have like hundreds of 5-star reviews. In your app, so can you kind of speak to?
Oh yeah.
Like outside of the app, being good or whatever, but getting lots of people coming to your page or.
It's so as far as featuring, a ton of work. It's possible. It can be done. I actually have an adorned app page now, so I finally got an actual app page that's different. Yeah.
So you got the little
Oh wow.
No, it's a big deal. I mean, it takes an immense amount of work, but it's all detail in the book, and it's just a lot of do's and don'ts, localization, things like localization, having good description, being a professional app, all those things are put into play. Do you update often? Are you, a good guy, right? Are you a good company? All those things, and it's 100% curated. There's nothing automatic on the iOS App Store. There are people out there that are looking at apps and getting them featured. So that's something to know with regards to that. As far as the reviews, it's when I time the review. I only ask for a review after they've beaten the game. So if they haven't beaten the game, they probably won't take the time to finally leave a review. And if they've beaten the game, I ask for a review.
How do you know they finished the game when you beat the game?
My game ends.
Yeah.
It's not an infinite runner,
So you know the person, you have their email, a way to contact them.
Oh, it's just a review button that shows up.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's like a secrets button.
It's event-based.
Yeah, it's event-based. So as soon as I know they've got the final sequence, a secrets button shows up where they get developer commentary, and then a request for review happens at the same time.
How do you word that request? Because I know that's a delicate process too.
Yeah, I just say, I actually say, thank you for taking the time to play it, and letting my world into yours, and just take a moment to thank us if you want.
And yeah, you want to pick your moment. I mean, he has an awesome. I mean, he has an end game where
their mind is blown.
I just beat this game. This was awesome. And hey, do you want to rate it? Yes, I do want to rate it.
And then I get a paragraph.
Whereas on some apps, you'll open up the I want to check my calendar. Shouldn't, or I mean, no, I don't want to review the
1
app.
minute in.
It's like, or it pops up. Oh, okay, you've opened the app 6 times now. Surely you want to. No, I want to use the app. But you find that moment where they've just completed a level, or they just saved a photograph, or they did whatever, and it's they accomplished a task, and they feel good about your app, and they feel like they can take a break from your app.
Flappy Bird's another one that did that really well, where only after you'd reached a certain point and beat your high score would they show that rate button on the front.
Yeah.
So they're hitting you on an emotional high. And one time I had coffee with Amir, and we were just talking about apps, and candidly you had said, I was talking about how to ask people for reviews, and you said, just saying something like, I'm an indie developer, I'm one guy, I'm not a company.
I'm a human being.
Please take a moment to rate this app.
It means a lot.
It lets me do what I do. And I think whatever you said is verbatim what is in my app. There's a rating prompt. It literally says, I'm one guy, I'm not a company. And I don't know if that's increased the ratings, but it definitely humanizes you.
I actually updated my app based on similar feedback.
Besides that ratings prompt, there's other techniques people are using. Lately, just over the past 2 years or something, there was a big, somebody started putting it in their what's new. And as they're updating the app, they see this what's new thing, and in it says, if you like our apps, please leave a rating. I mean, that's when you need the rating the most, especially because the App Store punishes you for updating your app by hiding all of your reviews. So in that what's new, ask for a review. And get past that initial 5 stars you need those 5 ratings.
That's always tough.
Also, with the ratings prompt, a lot of people are using maybe a little black hat trick, where they pop up. First, they say, "Do you like our app?" And yeah, maybe, no, and you'll get different second windows based on that. If you say, "Yeah, I love your app," it'll say, "Hey, will you review our app?" If you say, "No, I hate your app," I'm not going to send you to the store to review my app. I'm going to give you this little email thing to say, please tell me what I can improve. So I mean, it's a very effective tool that's become popular, and yeah, you should use it.
All right. Well, so I think what we're going to do is we'll get to our audience questions now, but we'll start with Nitin's question before, and I think we have. So we'll try and end right around 9 o'clock. So we got 12 minutes. So we'll treat these questions like rapid fire. But this one I think is a great one, and it's one that I had as one of the rapid fire questions. If you had $1,000 to spend on advertising or whatever it is with your apps, how would you do that? And we'll just work our way down the list.
So I'll do 3 things. One is figure out how to do the App Store optimization. Why? Because that's where people are searching for my app. 2, I'll produce content or work with a content writer to create stories about my product or app. And 3 is find and build relationship with the bloggers or news journalists. Those 3 tasks.
Hold on, I have to rebuttal.
Okay.
So if you actually have money, what particular like services, provide that at a cost?
Right, because I guess he feels like those are all kind of free things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those are, yeah.
So after optimization, like I'll pay someone like Nick or buy him coffee or pay him $100 consulting fee to explain the ins and outs of App Store optimization, or someone who knows it, right? The second is I may not be a good writer. So good writers, ghost writers, like he mentioned, it costs money. So I'll spend money on hiring someone assuming that I don't know how to write, how to create different blog articles or different stories about my journey. So if I'm creating an app about food, the stories could be top 10 pizza places in Dallas. Why you should not eat Italian in the summer. I'm just making this up, right?
Okay.
So anything that's relevant to my app, I'll pay someone to create those stories or pay someone to teach me.
Sure.
And the third one is the finding and building relationship with influencers. If I have my example of, let's say if I'm creating a food app, and what's your name?
John.
John has a very popular food blog in Dallas. Actually, there is one. I think it's called Food Bitch. That's the name of the blog. So if John has a very popular food blog, he's actually open for affiliates. He's going to charge people to write about them, right? So I'll reach out to John and work out a deal between us so I can be either a contributor or he can mention me in one of his articles, and I'll pay him for that. Why? Because John has the audience that is going to potentially use my app. So that's where the money is going.
Okay. Do a lot of bloggers accept money?
If they're a good one, but it's not expensive. The Next Web, you guys know about the Next Web, right?
No.
Depending on the Next Web, they cover a lot of startups and early stage companies. It costs between $50 to $150 to get a whole article about you, your company. You just have to find the right person and pitch them or work with them. And go back to my earlier example of setting up Google Alerts and identifying and listing people who are talking about your niche.
Cool. All right, Marcus. Cool. Yeah, so I have the experience of kind of running on sort of, how can we be really scrappy? The company I worked for up in Minnesota was very much budget focused. So launches were kind of inside of a can, so we were taking advantage of as many free resources as possible. With a lot of the review sites that you go to, this is just, again, my opinion, you can submit your game, and they will say, okay, we might review it if we want to, but there's always a paid option. Don't do the paid option. Just avoid it, in my opinion. It's, yes, you are paying them. Yes, you are getting something. We ran tests. We saw very little uplift in again, the traffic. Maybe we were going to the wrong places, but at every point on that ladder, if you get to something that has more visibility, they're going to charge you more. In my opinion, again, Facebook ads have been huge just across the board. If I had $1,000 of my own money, one, I would find an indie or somebody focused on I guess, digital design, art stuff to make me some really kick-ass creatives. Different sets that I can test and iterate on with a small budget, and then use the remainder of my money to, again, market through Facebook because you have that granularity and you have that targeting.
So what types of resources that you go to find people to do creatives for under budget, right?
Honestly, I would go find the nearest design institute. If there's an art institute around here, something, find students. They want to build their portfolios. If you're willing to pay them anything, they'll jump at it. I mean, to be honest, other I guess. There you go.
Depot.
Post an app there, and then we'll have about 3 hours.
What's it called?
Draw something for you.
So just go to
Deep Ellum.
Deep
Oh, Deep Ellum. Oh.
Well,
That's where the creatives are.
Sure.
Deep Ellum.
Just Deep Ellum.
Or search on Facebook, search in the, just search for creatives and stuff. You might find some groups where people are hanging out. So
You may check, and I'm sure there's a similar program, speaking of the university side. TCU in Fort Worth is a private university, about 7,000 kids, but they have a program called Roxo, and that's a whole department that does public relations. And to his point, they just want the business, and you know you can go in, they'll talk to you, and you can just see what the rates are. But they do a lot of that, and I don't know about SMU, but I would imagine TCU and SMU look at each other a lot. So there probably is a similar program in SMU that where they're trying to get people that you know that.
UTD is a video game design track and major, so there are definitely artists. I mean, Game Circus employs people that have graduated from there, so I mean, I think that there are a lot of opportunities. But yeah, you can't really run your marketing without creatives. So if you can find somebody to do a video on a budget, shoot for, I mean, in my opinion, about 15 seconds just of actual gameplay footage. I think that'll put you pretty good standing.
Have any of you guys used like Fiverr or anything like that for?
Use Upwork if you want to use online.
Upwork?
Don't use
Go
Fiverr.
on. Okay.
Just personal bad.
Upwork?
Upwork.
Upwork.
It's
They used to be Odesk.
Odesk. It's a combination
okay.
of Odesk and Elance. But I found like
Okay.
really creative and good quality people there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, Fiverr's low risk. I think
Yeah, it's
Ross
$5.
used Fiverr recently to write some story dialogue in your game. How did you feel like your experience with Fiverr went?
Well, I've used it for QA as well as editing copy, really. They need to do writing for me, but there are a lot of people out there that say they will do writing. I just had them review my story for content and just edit it. So it was, you get what you pay for, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like I got some really good few edits. I had somebody read over it, so it was useful. But my suggestion with Fiverr is because it is so cheap, you choose multiple targets and send it to multiple people. And you might be able to get out of that something really quality back. So
And
I did QA and I got some good QA out of it, but they missed something that was very important. Well, they missed something that was broken in the app. Yet they said they tested it, and I know they couldn't have tested it.
If your task requires like less creative and more manual work, then Fiverr is really good. And one example could be we could pay someone $5 on Fiverr and say, give us a list of top 100 bloggers in fashion industry in the U.S. And they'll do Google searches, or they might actually charge more than $5, but that doesn't require a lot of creativity. They just gotta find from Google and put it together.
Sure.
Things like that.
So while I said the floor here a second, but something you said, Marcus, about don't pay for paid reviews. I'm wondering, why there's reviews out there, review sites, because about a year ago I released a game, and I submitted press releases, very naive to the whole gaming community. I released a press release, and I've worked on a lot of press releases for enterprise software, so I thought it was a good press release and had people vet it and edit it, and I submitted to 100 different game and app review sites, and I did not, I went with the free option, right? I wasn't going to pay them. And guess how many I got? How many people reviewed my app?
Free?
Yeah.
Free?
None.
None.
So, I think that, obviously I could be completely mistaken, my app was, off base, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's basically you have to pay them. So I guess the question there is who uses those ads? So can I ask people, hands up who plays mobile games in this room? Okay, but now hands up how many people have found a mobile game through a review site? About 3 of you. Okay. I dare say that those reviews that you read were paid for.
Do you mind sharing how much you paid? You don't
I
have to
didn't pay anything.
You didn't pay.
That was the problem.
Use the free ones.
I went with the free option, and I got distracted. I kind of left the project for 10 months. Always intending to go back and actually pay somebody, but I never got around to it. So it was an interesting test that after a whole year, nobody had got around to actually I'll review this app.
That's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, the paid review sites. I mean, I feel like, if I'm a blog reviewer, my job is to review, an app reviewer, to review the apps on the App Store. And so, I mean, there was a time when I was a lot more popular. I had 5 apps in the top 20 on the education category. And for 6 months, I was locked in about number 5 on the education category. In those 6 months, 0 blog reviewers reviewed my app. And I feel like, because I refuse to go after these blog reviewers, and I mean, I'm number 5 on the education category. You'd think some of these kids app reviewers would have reviewed my app if I'm number 5. I mean, good or bad, but
I think there's also saturation that people are starting to understand that when they go to read blog reviews, they're just going to read that these people have paid to have this review.
Yeah.
And so they're discounting it before they even start.
Exactly.
So it might not even be worth it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I consider paying some of these reviews are, and a lot of these review sites, you pay them whatever they charge to bump you to the front of the line, basically is what they're, but when you get reviewed by them, first of all, if I pay them $500, I expect a good review. And I think that's an unsaid thing, but they also give you this little badge, which is a little marketing thing that you can put on your website. You can mention it on your app description, and that's basically what you're paying for, is this little badge. That if it's a popular review site and they give you, this year's best apps or something like that, this little gold star that you can put on there, that's what you're paying your money for.
Yeah. Well, quickly, Amir, can you speak to that? I know yours was heavily featured on different blogs. Were most of those from ones that you approached or paid?
It was kind of funny, actually. So to answer the question, app preview video, definitely. App preview video.
Yeah.
Preview video.
Yeah, spend the money on that. 30 seconds, make it good, make your screenshots, put words in your screenshots, descriptions of what your app does. That will do really good for you. And then you can spend the rest on beer. So as far as the review thing, the funniest thing was that number 1, your primary targets, I think, for getting reviewed, at least if you're building a game, is Apple Feature List and Touch Arcade. Those two places are focus all your energy there.
Is Touch Arcade game exclusive?
Game exclusive.
Okay.
What is App Review List?
Apple Features.
Apple Features. Feature List. You're just talking about getting Apple featured?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
just
thought
try to get featured
there was
with
like a
Apple.
list or something.
You don't know the list?
A blog review or something. I don't know. Okay.
The funny thing with Touch Arcade was that I actually emailed them 4 times, trying to get them to review my app. Send them the pitch. Send 5 promo codes with it. Don't be like, oh, email me back and I'll send you promo. Just send them over, right? They actually reviewed the first time I got visibility on Touch Arcade was when Darken was the number 10 app on the App Store. They were like, here are the top 10 apps of the apps for this week. And I was number 10. They're like, we don't know what this game is, but it's number 10. And then it took 3, and then Sean Musgrove is the guy on Touch Arcade that wrote that article. I followed him on Twitter, and then over, building a relationship with him over 20-25 days, I finally got him to do a review. So
Relationships.
you could be a number 1 app and still can't get an unsolicited review on your damn site.
Going back to the question of what do you do with $1,000, I kind of already answered that with I guess if I had $1,000 to spend, I would go to a conference. You find the right conference and the right the thing, and basically you're buying contacts at that point, so that when you release your app and you want it reviewed, I have people that I'm friends with, and I've seen at the same conference every year, and I can email them, and I will be bumped to the front of the line, and if I put, and they'll do a review for me because I know them, I've met them, and I have these contacts, and that's valuable to me, I think.
So I think we are at time, but I promised a couple more questions, so these can be like super rapid fire.
Yes.
All right.
So I have some money from that budget. Can I buy you guys coffee or lunch sometime?
You may. You may.
I actually did want to say something. So we kind of glossed over the featuring. Yes, it's really, really hard. Just for your, I guess, indie side, both Apple and Google pay attention to what they classify as indie developers. And what they're looking for, just universally, is integration of the technologies they have available and smart use of their tech. So if you can capture that, you'll get on their radar. Yes, there are other things you can do. Networking, obviously, like a crazy person is super important. But both platforms are I mean, they're in a war. So they're looking for people that are iOS, that are Google. They're looking for platform-specific integrations of what they offer. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything you guys wanted to plug of your own? I mean, since we can do marketing now.
Oh, you mean apps or whatever? Well, I was just thinking, another way to maybe spend your money, it's not direct marketing, but it's like you were talking about buying us coffee or something. If you're working at home or whatever, there's co-working spaces. Me and Nick both work at Node. We bounce ideas off each other. We talk to each other. Sergio, another app developer, in addition to him, works down at Fort Worth downtown. So I think co-working spaces are a great place to learn, get ideas. There's artists working there. There's app developers. There's marketers. Ali's always there at Node, and it's so I mean, out of us, right, there's 3 of us who are always there at Node. And yeah, I mean, I just mean on this panel, there in the audience, there's probably more, but that's somewhere where you could spend a monthly budget of just basically working with others in the field.
All right.
Guys, it's a little out of left field, and it may be people in this room, but where would you guys recommend if somebody's looking for app developers that want to do freelance work?
Behind you.
Huh? That's great. Then I'd love to talk after the meeting. That's one of the reasons I came. So.
And also on our Facebook group there, on the board, I just asked that question today. I want to compile a list of if you are open to doing freelance work, if you can do, whether you're a web developer, an app developer, a game developer, an artist. People are constantly asking me that question. Yeah. Do I do freelance work? I don't have the time right now, but here, talk to this person. I'd love to be able to give this list of people who want to be contacted.
Well, that's why I target this meetup group, because this is all going to be app developers, and I'm sure
so
there's people in
and I mean, I never write down these names of who wants to be contacted.
And that's why I said it before the end.
Yeah. First of all,
I had to say.
First of all, join the Facebook group if you haven't. We have discussions and events and etc. on there, and contact me on Facebook if you do want to get developed if you're a freelancer.
Yes. Just an extra tip since we talk about NOC. Do you guys heard about Toastmasters? You can spend $7.50 and go to different Toastmasters. Right now in Dallas, they have about 8,000 Toastmasters there. Wow. Tell your story. Yeah. In marketing, we talk about marketing is about your story. Then you tell your story in front of public speaking class and tell them what you guys think. In Toastmasters, after your presentation, everybody's gonna give you a feedback. Yeah. Everyone's gonna give you a feedback, especially the one in this President Persuader. They have 40 members regularly every week. $1,000, you can join 10 Toastmasters for a year. Then with all the fee paid. $1,000, you can have about 3,000 to 8,000 people. You reach out and ask them, did I touch your heart? Did my story of telling? Ask them that question. They're gonna tell you the truth. They will be nice a little bit. Sometimes. They will say, hey, it sucks. You need to change how you say it, how you present it. Toastmasters is a tool too. If you want to say your story by yourself instead of somebody professional.
Cool. All right. Did you guys want to plug anything else that you're?
Just my book. So leanpub.com/lean.
It's lean like lean steak, L-E-A-N.
Yeah.
I'll post a link to it in the comments. And also, if you have anything else you want to plug, then I can post it in the comments after this. Just see me, and then I'll kind of try to compile stuff. Did you guys want to?
No, nothing for me.
So couple of things though. If you guys want to reach out to me, it's isocialu.com.
It's what?
isocialu.com.
The letter
and my
U,
email,
right?
letter Y-O-U. My email is ali@isocialu.com. I actually have free mentorship hours at Addison Treehouse. Who has been to Addison Treehouse? So you don't even have to buy me coffee. You can just catch me there. So Addison Treehouse. It's a co-working space. No, it's a co-working space like Node.
Okay.
So I'm listed one of their mentors there.
Addison Treehouse.
Yeah. And actually, I do have one other plug. Can I use?
Sure.
I do have some video courses specific to startup marketing and how to get free press. So some of the things that I discussed about setting up Google Alerts and how to use them, they are listed on a competitive platform of Lynda. It's called Udemy. I believe they are paid there, but if you email me and mention this meetup, then I can get you some coupons.
Your contact will be
ali@isocialu.com.
Yeah,
We can distribute
and I'll
it
post
there.
that in the link as well. All right, so one final question, Ross?
I just have a plug. I've got a new game coming out. It's in beta right now, so if anyone's interested in beta testing a game, it's a flying game through downtown cities. I'll put my number up, and perhaps you can write my number up there. They can text me your email address, and you just have to download Test Flight, which is an app.
I was gonna
And post it in the Facebook group.
I was going to ask if you've heard of Beta Family.
No.
Beta Family, it's like a website for getting beta testers, and it's actually really cool. You actually can pay money, or you can do the free route, and actually people want to test people's apps.
We've been talking about having maybe a beta testing meetup if you guys are interested in such a thing. And also, I think we kind of glossed over the featuring part. I think it got a little short, but I think we were talking about maybe having a featuring whole meetup dedicated to that.
Yeah, maybe having a whole meetup. But again, looking at Amir's stuff, he's written pretty exhaustively on the subject. That's another. But sometimes picking between some things that people mention out loud, it can be helpful. So, awesome. Well, that does it. Give it up for our panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Our next meetup will be next month. I don't know what the topic will be, but it's sure to be fun again.
Something about apps.
Something about apps. That's right.